Hi everyone, I'm going to be scrapbooking a layout based on this sketch, which is from Nuts About Sketches. You can head on over to nutsaboutssketches.blogspot.com to check out this week's sketch. But here it is. And so what I'm going to do is I'm actually making it into a single photo layout because I have a bunch of these photos that we got done at Disney World that I'm trying to get scrapped, and this is actually the first one I'm scrapping. So these might come out in different order than what they were actually scrapped once they're uploaded to YouTube, but and to my blog. But this is one of the photos that we got done at Cinderella's royal table before you go up to eat dinner with the princesses. Cinderella poses with girls down in the lobby, and I guess it's not really a lobby, but in a little fancy area off to the side. So anyways, my girls were really ecstatic to meet the princesses. This was our first full day at Disney World. We had arrived the day before and just quickly zipped off to Hollywood Studios to do a few things, but this was their kind of day where they were in awe of the castle and seeing princesses all over the place and stuff. So they were really, really happy, although Sophie looks a little subdued there. Sophie's really, really shy, and by the end of our trip she was really used to meeting characters, but at this point I think Cinderella might have been the second or third person she had met, and so she was still a little not too sure about meeting all these people, but she did have a really, really great time. She's just a little shy for photos and stuff. As you can see, they were dressed up. Olivia's favorite princess is Belle, and so she's wearing the Belle dress. And Sophie's favorite princess is Sleeping Beauty, or Princess Aurora. So she's wearing that dress. And of course, you don't know which princesses you're going to meet when you go to eat at the royal table. But it turned out both of those princesses were there. Hooray! I don't think it would have been a huge catastrophe if they weren't, but it was really, really nice that both kids got to meet their favorite princesses. So I'm going to start with this as my jumping off point. I don't know how much I'm going to stick to it. I really like it as a kind of, I think I'm going to kind of do, I'm just going to forget about this picture is how I'm going to interpret it. I'm just going to kind of move this one over a little bit and go from there. And I'm going to use a lot of I like the lines on this one. I like the borders, kind of like the horizontal and vertical lines together. So I'm gonna stick pretty closely to the sketch, I think, or at least that's my plan. I never go by what I plan, but anyways, that's what I'm gonna do. So I'm gonna put you on fast forward. Okay, so I'm gonna do something a little bit different with this video and do some narration throughout it. Here I am just trying to choose a background paper from the Beau Chateau collection by Stampin' Up. I really liked the blues and creams in this, and I thought it really picked up on Cinderella's dress in particular. And so I went with that pattern there because I thought it picked up on the drape that was in the background of that photo. And so here I'm just matting the photo, and I think I was going to do it on soft suede, but I ended up picking crumb cake as the color I matted, and it's just a really, really thin matte. I don't even think I needed to mat it, to be honest with you, but I just did. And now I'm picking a color or a pattern, I guess, to coordinate to run that strip down the back. That strip is from the sketch, and what I'm doing here is I'm just matting it on a darker paper. I found that it was kind of floaty on the paper as it was, and sometimes I do this when I want to anchor something on the page, is I'll just kind of add some trim to it in a slightly darker color. Okay, so now I'm just cleaning up a little bit and trying to decide on placement. Now here I'm just going to take two strips off of adjacent sides of this piece of paper. That just is going to make it a little bit less than 12 by 12. And I want to do that because I'm going to mat this entire layout on a piece of cream or white cardstock. And so there I was just distressing the edges with crumb cake ink because that paper was pre-distressed, and so once I cut off two sides of it I had to re-distress it to match up with the other two sides. So now I'm just deciding on placement here and trying to put my strip down in a spot that's gonna look good, and I let the top and the bottom hang off like that because I knew I was going to mat the layout, and I thought that would look kind of cool. Now I'm going to add some stitching, and one of the things that I did with this layout is I used stitching in place of doodling. And so instead of lining that strip with doodles, which is what I would normally do, I ran a zigzag stitch down the edge of it. And now I'm also going to put a straight stitch all the way around the edge of the layout. I'm using a dark thread here for this stitching, and the reason I'm using a dark thread instead of a white thread is I want to be able to see it a little bit better, and I also want to pick up a couple of dark elements on this, what is going to be otherwise a pretty light pastel-y type of a layout. And so I just want to provide some balance, because although the main things in the photo are pastels, like the colors of their dresses, there's a lot of dark in the background, so I want to balance that out. I'm just picking the paper that I'm going to use for the circle that's going to go behind the photo, and that is from the Lost and Found collection, one of the Lost and Found. It might have been at Madison Avenue, I can't remember. And so now I'm just going to distress the edges, do that to all of the elements on this layout. I'm going to put some ink around it, and I think I'm using crumb cake on all of the elements in this layout, and then I'm just going to run my distressing tool around the edge, and that just shows some of those really pretty white fibers of the paper. It's so yummy. And now I'm doing something very dangerous, which is I am stitching a freehand circle, which really didn't turn out very well, but I went with it. So once I went off the page, I just kind of kept on going off just to make it look like I was sort of doing it on purpose. I'm not very good with a sewing machine, so doing a circle on a sewing machine is not a good idea for me. So now I'm just trying to pick some more coordinating papers. I'm taking another strip out of that kind of more solid blue pattern, and that's what I'm going to be using as my top and bottom border. Now this is the problem with using stitching, is that now I can't lift up the top and bottom of that strip, and so now I have to cut this paper perfectly in order for it to fit. I'm a bit of a backward scrapper. If you watch my process videos, you probably notice that I'm almost always pulling stuff up and sticking other stuff underneath, because I just don't think ahead enough to decide what's going to go under something. I tend to work from the top down, which is probably not the greatest way to scrapbook, but whatever works for you, right? So now I'm in the position where I have sewn that strip down, and I want to tuck these pieces in behind. So I did the best I could here, and I think it turned out okay. I just tucked it in under the flap that wasn't stitched down, and that worked out okay. It just took a little bit more fussing and fiddling than what I like to do when I scrapbook, but it looks good. So now again, I'm just kind of trying to figure out the placement here. At this point, I'm kind of going with the really light pink and the really light blue, which is very different color scheme for me. And so I'm feeling like the whole thing is a little bit too pastel-y. So I'm looking for some darker colors. So I pull out a piece of that Beau Chateau paper that's mostly the suede color. And now I'm looking for a darker pink, because that will pick up on Sophie's dress, which is a darker pink. And also it will just give a bit of punch to the layout, so it's not all kind of washed out looking. And so first I experiment with this piece of basic gray paper from the Olivia collection. I don't particularly love that print with a border punch, and I also was looking for larger scallops. So whenever I do scallops, I almost always use a solid cardstock instead of patterned paper, because I just like the look better. So I went with that distressed solid pink, also from the Olivia collection. And that's what I'm going to use for the little scalloped edge that's on the top and bottom strips there. So, sorry, some of the action is happening off screen there. I'm just placing those scallops and trying to figure out, I've got the same elements, the really skinny strip of the pink paper, the scallop strip, and then the soft suede strip, and I'm trying to make them so that they're not necessarily symmetrical. I think they end up being more similar than what I planned. Now I'm going to make this piece of lost and found paper into a journaling tag. And it's a 6x6 piece of paper, and I want it to be 4x6, and so, but I wanted that banner to be centered. So I found the center of the banner and I measured over 2 and sliced, and then turned it over, measured over 2 and sliced. So that's how I kind of centered that, just using my trimmer. I try not to use rulers if possible. I'm not good with rulers. So there I am again. I'm just matting that with some crumb cake. I wanted it to really reflect the picture. I wanted it to be the same. So I'm going to doodle around it with my sewing machine, which I also did on other elements in the layout. So I'm just kind of carrying that through to as many elements as I can. And that nice dark thread, I love the look of it. It looks so, it just really finishes off the piece and makes it look like a, it just looks really finished. So here I decided to distress these little teeny weeny thin strips of paper, which is really a bad idea. It took me forever to do that. I turned off the camera because it was just annoying. So yeah, I will never distress a teeny skinny piece of paper again. And now here again, I'm just trying to place these so that it's not symmetrical. I think they end up being a little bit more symmetrical than I planned, but that's just the way she goes. I'm going to use my Tombow Mono Multi, which is a crazy name for a glue. But anyways, it's a great glue. I love it. It dries so quickly, even quicker than that other one. What is it called? The shiny one. I forget what it's called. Okay, so now here I am. I'm just trying to place it all, and that awkward little strip was annoying me, so I just ripped it off. And yeah, I spent a lot of time fussing, and I don't think it really matters exactly which millimeter over that little strip was placed, but in the moment it seems important, so I kind of fret about it and then stick it down. Got to commit to something. That's always my biggest challenge, is committing to it. I could hum and haw over it forever, but you got to eventually just glue it down and stitch it down, and then it's not going anywhere. So I'm really liking the structure of this layout. It's kind of, I don't always scrapbook this way. I'm kind of setting out the structure of it before I think much about how I'm going to decorate it up with embellishments and stuff. I really like how the brown and the pink just really add a lot to that basic layout. So what comes next? Yes, now I'm going to do my journaling. And I have this centering ruler, which is a really great tool to have. It's an inexpensive one. It has those lines that really helps you. Firstly, it's great for centering, but it's also really great for drawing lines. Then I just figured out where I wanted the picture to go, and I ran my pencil along it so that I would know how far over to bring my journaling, so it wouldn't be covered by the picture. And now I'm going to fuss a little bit about filling up this space. I like to fill up the spaces on my journaling cards, and I ran out of ideas, so I had to just put a little fluffy statement at the end. I forget what it even says, but it's something that doesn't really add much to the journaling, but it just fills the space. So much fun, or something like that. So now here I'm trying to figure out a title, and my original title idea was Cinderella's Royal Table, which is not very creative or inventive or interesting, and it also takes up a whole lot of letters, and so so at some point I changed my mind here, and I'm trying to find something that's going to be enough contrast against those pink and brown dots and polka dotted pattern paper. And I really liked the idea of the word Cinderella being written in like a script type of, in a cursive. And then I think this is the point at which I decided I didn't have the right letters for Cinderella in this font, but I really wanted to use the font because it just looks so, it really picks up on Cinderella's dress, and it's sparkly. So I went with Magical Moment because I had the font, the letters for that, and I think that that's probably a more creative title anyways. Only minimally more creative. I'm not great with titles. Anyways, I'm gonna finally commit and glue all this stuff down. I sometimes glue my elements to one another before I actually put them on the paper, and that helps me kind of keep it all in the kind of proportions that I want. And I usually fuss a little bit more than I need to with the thickers as well. I'm going to put that G on first because it's the tallest of those letters, and then I'll place the other ones around it. And there's not huge contrast there, like you can't really see Magical from afar, and I'm trying to be a little bit less fussy about that kind of stuff. I used to use almost all black thickers because I wanted everything to show up, but now I'm getting more used to the idea of you got to look at it to read it. Now here I wanted to pick up on yellow from Olivia's dress, and there was no yellow in the layout yet. So I had this idea that I would run these 2 lines of yellow butterflies down those 2 sides of the layout, and that just looked really weird. It was kind of like random yellow butterflies from out of the blue. So instead I decided to mix in with the yellow some of the other colors from the papers that were already in the layout, and that just helped the butterflies become more cohesive, like just more part of the layout instead of standing out as a new element. Blends in the yellow, and I think I added yellow in other elements later on. So now I am probably, I'm inking the edges of all of those butterflies. I fold them in half to do that. It makes it a lot easier and quicker. And you can get into the little edges of the butterfly wings at the very top. You usually can't get into those, but if you fold it in half, you can get them. So now I'm going to sew these down. Oh, first I'm going to make a little tab with my Stampin' Up! Punch. Everybody's using those little tab punches, and I don't have one. I have the old Stampin' Up! One. But what I do is I just stick it under, and it looks just like the other tab that everybody's using these days, if you cover the rounded part of it. So now I'm looking for stickers, and I'm going to use those little teensy weensy mini, probably micro letters by Kaisercraft. And I was so excited when I discovered these letters. And I remember talking about it. I did my first haul video, and I talked about these letter stickers, and I was so excited because I'd get to, put words on little tiny things. And then you know what, you guys, these letters are the biggest pain in the butt that you've ever seen. They are so tiny. You can barely pick them up, and like placing them is a nightmare. They're terrible. They look really good, but I never use them because they're such a pain. So that was a bit of a Okay, so now I'm going to sew those butterflies on, and I'm going to change the camera angle so that you can see me do this, but I wanted to sew them first so I knew what I was doing because I wasn't sure if it was going to work or not. So I didn't want to bother changing the camera angle because that actually takes a bit of time. And I immediately regretted sewing those on, and I'll tell you why in a second, but first I'll let you see me sew these on. Before I sew them on, I'm going to, for the first time in my life, think ahead and put a sticker underneath where those butterflies are going to go, which makes my life a lot easier because once they're sewed on, I can't, I can't pick them up and put anything under it. So I slowed the video back down to normal speed so you could watch me sew these on. Not that it's rocket science or anything, but you just gotta really be careful with your fingers, firstly, and you gotta hold on to those butterflies so they don't just get pushed across your page, because the foot of your sewing machine will just keep pushing that pink butterfly further and further away. So you have to kind of get it started, and then I tried to not cover the camera, but it's hard to see, I know. So there, and then you just have to hang on to it until it gets started, and then once it gets started, it's good to go. So, and yeah, so there it is all finished. I think it looks cute. I've never done that with butterflies before, so I thought that was a Cute idea. And now here's what I really regretted about those butterflies down in the left corner. I wished I had put something underneath of those darn butterflies, because that still annoys me when I look at that layout, that I didn't have something under those butterflies. I just feel like they're kind of floating. So here I am trying to think ahead of some more layers that I'm going to use. Those stickers, what I like about those stickers is the bright colors, that they're sort of the same colors, but they're a little bit richer than the ones I already had on. So because most of my layout is so pale, I want to just step it up a bit of a notch with my embellishments. That butterfly I picked specifically because it had the black on it, and it picks up on the darkness behind the behind the photo. And here I am trying to place a doily to make up for the fact that that's a doily sticker by October Afternoon, and I'm trying to make up for the fact that there is nothing underneath those butterflies by putting something sort of I'm kind of wishing I could cover one of the butterflies to get that doily in there, but I couldn't. So okay, so fiddling with some embellishments. And yeah, the reason I'm narrating this video is I've had some trouble with my music. There's somebody claiming that they own my music, which they don't. I buy royalty-free music specifically so that I can make YouTube videos. But every video I have, it keeps coming up as this person saying that they own my music, which is wrong. And it's just annoying. So I thought I would, for this time, not do music just until I can get that sorted out. And also, I had a couple of requests of people just wanting to know a little bit more about the thought process. I often put little titles up that just say like what I'm using and what I'm doing and stuff, but some people had requested that I just kind of talk a little bit more about what I do and why I do it. And a lot of the times there's no method to my madness. I'm just kind of scrapping. I just, having fun. I don't have a real reason for much of what I do, but sometimes I do. So now I've been wanting to make these little flags. I cannot break down and buy them because they're way too expensive in my opinion. So those little flags, I forget what they're called, but October Afternoon makes them. So I've got some toothpicks, and that's an October Afternoon sticker that I'm putting on there. And then I just broke off the end of the toothpick with my little wire cutters. And now I'm just looking I want to make 3 of them. So one of them I use the label for, and then the other 2 I just cut some paper strips with my trimmer. I did that off camera, and I'm just gluing them around a paper clip. I'm cutting them off. Sorry, some of this is happening off camera. And then I just use my square punch to get the little edges on the flags. And I don't know if you can see it, you probably can't on the video, but I actually have on my yellow punch, on my yellow square punch, I have markings for the center of each of the lines on it so that I can make sure that I'm getting my flags in there right. I did that specifically for flag making purposes. So you could of course just snip them, and I do that sometimes too. So now I wasn't sure exactly what I was going to do to get these flags on my layout. I've never used flags before, so I was kind of struggling a little bit here on how to layer them and that sort of thing. I pre-made that bow out of some Stampin' Up, the skinny ribbon by Stampin' Up, and I was hoping that I could just cover the ends of the sticks with that ribbon, which is being a little stubborn. It's not quite sticking the way I want it to, but if I leave it alone for long enough, that glue will set and it will actually stick, and it is stuck. So yeah, now I'm just adding some more brads. I'm not a huge fan of brads. I don't love putting brads on my layouts, but I like the looks of them, but I don't like going through the process of poking the holes and putting them through and spreading them apart. But here I am using flowers, which is unusual for me. Those are Prima flowers that I bought a long time ago when I visited my sister in Moncton, and I've been hoarding them, and this I thought was a perfect chance to use it. I don't do many pretty layouts, so I thought this was a good chance. Those are some Stampin' Up! Flowers that I bought from the discount bin. I love crocheted flowers. They're one of my favorite. If I'm going to use flowers, I love crocheted. And then that's just a bit of really inexpensive trim from the fabric store, just where they have their elastics and stuff in the back. And I'm coloring it with some Glimmer Mist. And I went a little overboard on the blue. You'll see the blue ends up this really bright royal blue. It's kind of hideous. I don't think it would look good on anything. Um, so there's yellow, that's Jingle Bells, I think, and the pink, I don't remember the name of it. But then this blue is called Jack Frost or something, and it's really, really, really dark. So what you don't see is off camera, I've got inky fingers there. Off camera, I go back and I cut off new white flowers and I dye them with my patina Glimmer Mist, which is a much better color. You'll see that once they go on my layout, the blue is more calm. And the Stampin' Up! Ones, the reason I misted them, I used the Glimmer Mist was called Old Lace, and they were just too bright white. It was too stark, so Antique Lace just is a way to add. It's like a slight pinky cream colored. And so that just makes them match those pretty Prima ones a little bit better. And now I'm just kind of deciding on placement. The flowers aren't quite dry enough yet, so I'm kind of pushing it a little bit here. And yeah, sorry, a lot of the action is happening off screen here. I'm just looking for some centers. I want them to match the Prima ones. And so I have this little Making Memories box of little embellishments that are good for flower centers. So I'm just kind of playing around with figuring out which flowers are going to get which pearl centers. I think I ended up using all pearls on them just so that it ties them all together, even though there are 3 or 4 different kinds of flowers on there. Here I'm just putting a tiny little detail on one of my flags. It just looked a little plain to me. So I took the center out of that heart punch, that double heart punch, and I'm gluing it onto the flag off center. And then I'm also going to put a tiny, tiny little brown pearl on the edge of that heart. And you won't be able to see it in the video, but at the end when you see the pictures, you'll probably be able to see it. I thought about using a string of those pearls, but I didn't. And just trying to kind of pretty it up. I don't use these kinds of supplies very often, so I'm a little bit outside my comfort zone and just trying to figure out what I want to put on it. And I'm not great with flower arrangements or anything, so I'm just kind of sticking them down the best I can and try not to fuss with it too much because it's not going to look any better if I spend 20 minutes figuring out the flower placement, right? So I just kind of tried to go with it. I try to go with more of a scattered look when I'm doing flowers as opposed to a more realistic like spray of flowers, which I think looks beautiful. Some people do that really well, but mine always turn out weird. So I just try to splatter them like I would with buttons or brads or something. And here I am just adding all those pearls to the middles of my flowers. And we're almost done. I'm just going to add those brads that I had picked out before. And again, I'm not a huge fan of using brads. I love the looks of brads and I like what they do, especially different size brads I like. And I think I use different size brads here. Some of the big Stampin' Up! Brads, and then I also use some little tiny Recollections ones, and it looks almost like a splattered look. I really like that look, but they're just so labor intensive. So yes, I'm feeling the need to talk, even though I don't have much to say here. I'm hoping that I'm going to get to sort out the music issue so that my next video will have music in it that isn't going to cause me a big headache. And yeah. So I'm not sure if you guys like hearing me blabber on for 30 minutes about my layout or what, but I don't, I certainly won't be doing this with every single video, but like I said, I just got that request, a couple of requests for more information, behind the scenes info, I guess. Here I am just adding that mat to the end, and oh yes, right. Then I decided that that journaling piece that I made looked a little plain, so I'm adding a flower brad and I'm going to put some stickles in the middle. That's just my stickles chart. I'm trying to decide what color to use. I go with the predictable blue. Um, and then I'm going to put some yellow. So this became my blue, yellow, pink layout. Some little yellow ones beside, and the video cut off there. But here you're going to get to see the little heart detail on that flag. And thanks for watching, everybody.